Welcome, and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, February 22nd, 2021, just after 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. We're going to talk a bit about Ethereal Gary Con today, that is Virtual Gary Con, and a few other subjects. I want to thank those of you who tipped me off to a little sound problem I was having here on the show. I do appreciate it. So where are we at? Ethereal Gary Con. So that's happening March 25th to 28th. And I think one of the advantages that it is having over other virtual conventions is that it has had a whole year of having to deal with this pandemic and to get used to the idea of running a virtual convention. As people probably know, last year, as we were getting into March, businesses, companies, places, events were beginning to take some precautions, some protective measures against the pandemic that was beginning to rise. It was beginning to become more apparent how insidious it was worldwide. I know that the game store was sanitizing surfaces between customers. We were limiting for nearly a month the number of people that could occupy any room in the back for gaming. And that alone was cutting into the game store business model, because the game store business model relies heavily on running events. And obviously, a convention is all about events. It's about bringing people together, sitting them around with one another, playing games for hours on end. These are people coming in from all over the country, exposures of multiple kinds, no matter where you are. People talk about going to conventions and coming home with some sort of cold, or occasionally a flu or some sort of virus, just in regular years of gaming conventions, because you've got people in close quarters touching the same things, whether it's touching the same dice or game materials, pieces on a game board, sitting so close to one another. Put your hand on the table, you take it off to do something, someone else puts their hand in the same spot moments later. Um, there are all sorts of ways that transmission of even regular viral infections can happen. Sneezing, coughing, yelling in character, getting excited, jumping up and down, shaking hands with people that you've just met and started playing with and enjoyed the company of, the hugging, the kissing of old friends. All of that stuff is just a huge problem. Yeah, sound. Thank you all for being here, Artanis. Iron F, Misty, Rick, appreciate you all being in there. Rick's having draft withdrawals, absolutely. But of course, having 8 people around a table handing one another stuff repeatedly and talking and exchanging information is going to be problematic when it comes to the spreading of infections. Well, of course, Gary Con had the same problem. And because there wasn't an official announcement about not being able to have large events like that until pretty late, it took a while for them to be able to uh, announce that they were not going to have a physical GaryCon, because they were on the hook for the contract and the fees and deposits and whatnot. And so too, um, Grand Geneva couldn't just let them out of the contract, because they'd be on the hook for their own things, and they had no way of dealing with the loss of revenue when they had put so much into it, and of course had people to pay and stock to buy and a space to cover. So it would have been a huge loss for them too. And contractually, both could not do anything about it until finally the powers that be said events over a certain size just can't happen. Suddenly, it's no fault for the convention organizers. It's no fault for the Grand Geneva. They can appeal to their insurance companies for claims of loss of revenue due to act of God or whatever the language was within the contracts to cover that sort of thing. So once they were able to get out of that, and there's no harm, no foul. But this is like one of the first conventions that would have had to have been canceled due to the pandemic. Thus, they have had a year. Of course, they experimented with how they were doing it. They did a really good job, KC Rift in particular, um, handling the main conversion from a physical convention over to a virtual convention, helping Luke out by doing that, and having a team of people helping him. Um, and they did a pretty good job, under a very difficult situation, pivoting from physical to a virtual convention. What they what they've got now going into this year, of course, is a lot of people who have run games online virtually now that maybe hadn't at that point. I'm in that mix. I hadn't been running virtual games before. Um, so now I can go into this as well with some experience and some confidence in what I'm doing this year, having run in four or five other virtual conventions, and of course individual games here and there throughout the year as well outside of conventions. So a lot of experience now has been gained by people that will be running games. He's, Rick says, yeah, he misses the not the same as opening packs alone. Sarah asks. He says, oh, I still rip packs, so which is good. You got to. I think by the time the game store reopens, we'll have gone through probably four standard set cycles since we had to close last March 26th. If we don't open till April or May, it's going to be at least four, depending on the timing of it. If it trails into June, we could miss five standard cycles. Jason's been keeping up with continuing to pick up some stock so that there aren't holes in our stock displays for Magic and for a number of other things, but mainly that because that's where we would feel it most. Um, so when the store does reopen, hopefully hit the ground running. Everyone will be letting it, word will spread quickly. It won't be a secret that we're reopening when we reopen. So there you go. Gary Con 2, sorry, Gary Con as well, because Gary Con 13 this year, being virtual, was going to probably be a lot bigger than it was last year. A lot more events, a lot more attendees. I think people will be enjoying going to the convention. We will see. We will see. I'll be running a lot of games. I'll be running some war games like Divine Right, the mid 70s TSR hex and shit fantasy war game. I'll be running some board games, probably some that I run a lot or play a lot with other people in my regular board gaming, my online board gaming groups. So we'll see what we put together for that. Um, I'll be running some first edition D&D just as I have throughout the year at different conventions. So look for those too. I need to get those settled by, well, I'll probably have them up before the next week is out. Because I do want to get those done so that when they do open registration, they'll be on the books and ready to go rather than a lot of people coming and jumping on other events and then not having time for mine. So let's talk about that a bit. If you are going to run games for Virtual Gary Con, I think you want to get them done before March 1st, before the end of the month, before February 28th, which is next Sunday. So if you can get them in this week or over next weekend, you'll be in good shape and ready to go, and you'll be able to be vocal about what events you have, and people will sign up for them, and everything will work out really well. If you wait, Raja's is good. Raja's on the Ganges is a fun game we've been playing. I think that's up to a 4-player game. It's pretty good with the expansions too, but it's pretty good even as a base game, which is probably what I would run for a game convention. That way, if there are newer people playing, there's less to bring them up to speed on before you can get the game going. Kashgar's been pretty fun. Of course, good old can't stop. You play a handful of games that can't stop over on, say, Board Game Arena. Yucata.de, though, good place for board games. Tabletopia.com, another place I play some games from time to time. Maybe a good old game of Stone Age too, huh? That could be fun. Just a classic. A lot of people already know how to play it, so people can jump in, just have some fun for an hour or two, playing a board game with other people that they don't get to game with all that often because of our distance. But we will be virtually not so distant the 25th through the 28th of March for Gary Con. What other games? Are anybody that's in the chat right now planning on running some games? You could try to get into a 5e game to learn. Um, it could be tricky to do that at a convention, let alone at a virtual convention. It might be worth exploring opportunities for demo versions of games that you might, whether it's 5e as you're asking, or some other game that you haven't played before. Um, there will probably be a number of games though on the books that are at beginner level, so I wouldn't worry about that. If you want to join up for Virtual Gary Con and look for a beginner level games, I'm sure there'll be some. You might have more fun though trying to find a beginner level game sometime between now and Gary Con. You could still jump in on beginner level games once you're at Gary Con, but you could also probably jump in on some intermediate games if you've already played once or twice. Having even a base knowledge of most role playing games is enough to jump in with a group that's at a lower level, beginner level, basic level of the game. And 5th edition, not super hard to learn. The tricky part, I think, for virtual gaming is getting to know whatever virtual tabletop is being used if you haven't used one before. So you might want to, oh, you definitely want to set up an account with, well, once you get your badge, you'll have 3 months free of Fantasy Grounds, which is something they're doing with Ethereal Gary Con this year. All badges, all attendees will get a 3 month subscription to Fantasy Grounds, and That will allow you to learn that. And, the sooner you sign up, the sooner you can start exploring that, get used to it, and familiarize yourself so that when you go to play in a game at GaryCon, you already know the nuts and bolts, some of the early stuff, some of the basic stuff. Um, you know, how to create a character, how to move pieces around on the virtual tabletop, how to roll the dice, um, just the basics that anybody should need to know when playing in a game. People can help you out with a lot of things, but if they're starting off, if there's a half hour of game time spent teaching everybody just how to roll the dice on a game, not that it will necessarily take that long, but you never know. So better to set that up in advance. Of course, you can get a free account on Roll20, and a lot of people will be running their games on Roll20. It's probably the most popular of the virtual tabletops for role-playing games. So if you spend some time, sign up with a free account on Roll20 and just learn how to roll dice there. Watch some demo videos, some tutorials for Roll20 or even for Fantasy Grounds on YouTube. Um, just about any virtual tabletop you could think of or you could find is going to have some demo tutorial videos for how to just get the basics in to learn how to do that stuff. So if you take some time doing that with one or two systems prior to the actual convention, you'll personally feel a lot more secure, and the more comfortable you are with those systems ahead of time. And get yourself an account on Discord. Learn how to use the voice and video um, chats that they have available through Discord, just so that when those get used in game too, you already have an account. You already know what you're doing with that. Um, Once you have an account set up on Discord, of course, you can go to the Gary Con website, garycon.com, and find the link on there. It'll be pretty prominent, I'm sure. In fact, I don't know. Let's see if it's something we can find really quickly. Here we go. All right, so garycon.com, celebrating a life well played. Playgarycon.com, that's the link for where you go to get the ethereal badges. Pop that up real quick. That's at tabletop events. And you can see that. That goes back to the official site. So you can go back and forth. Website, email, Twitter, Facebook. Those various places will help you get more information. A lot of the information is right here. And this is all the stuff on tabletop events, which you can get, as we just showed you, through this link on their main site at garycon.com. You'll notice down here they have a Discord server link. So once you've signed up with Discord and set up an account for yourself, then you can go to the GaryCon Discord server and start to learn how that works. And of course, you got the events. You can find out who all the celebrity guests are, so you can sit in on seminars and on talks, discussions. And let's see, GaryCon Adventurers League. Right on. I'm happy to give the info. It's exactly what the show's all about today. Gary Con Greyhawk Adventures. Oh yeah, there's something I should talk about a little bit. So Jay Scott, who on Twitch is known as Lord Gusumba, is a 40-year veteran of running Greyhawk setting for his own personal games and also games at conventions. When they had Living Greyhawk, of course, he was involved with that. But he's run his own home campaign set in the world of Greyhawk, Gary's invented setting, for over 40 years. and he has an excellent Twitch TV um, site where you can watch some games that he's run. You can participate in chats where he's got interesting guests on who know all about Greyhawk, and all of this is very much Greyhawk oriented material. And last fall, he decided to run a small virtual convention called Greyhawk Con, and it was a big hit. A lot of people running Greyhawk games. Um, there's a whole group of people that have written up new scenarios using the Greyhawk setting, but using 5th edition rules. And while they can't just sell those because Greyhawk is IP of Wizards of the Coast, they are allowed, of course, to run them themselves. So a lot of these authors write up these scenarios and then at these gaming conventions will run their own adventures that they've written up once, twice, three times, whatever, over the course of the 3 or 4 days, whatever, how long the convention is. Well, Greyhawk, Virtual Greyhawk Con did so well last fall that he and Luke got to talking, and they decided to do a convention within a convention and do a bunch of Gary Con Greyhawk adventures and just be running Greyhawk adventure D&D games, mostly 5th edition, um, over the course of Gary Con as well. So much like Adventurers League, which has games of regular 5th edition from Wizards of the Coast, um, play play experience. What's the word? Organized play. That's it. So the organized play branch of Wizards of the Coast that runs Adventurers League will have games all weekend as well. So there is a ton of D&D to be played, especially if you're a 5th edition player, both in Greyhawk and outside of Greyhawk, in official games. If you're an Adventurers League person, you will find that there are a ton of opportunities to play over Virtual Gary Con. You really should sign up. You're missing a real treat if you do. And these are the kinds of things that they do live at the physical conventions that work really well during these times when we're having to do virtual conventions. So we're glad that it's an alternative that works out for everybody. What else do we got here? We want to look over a few other things. Oh, you know what? You should probably, going back to the regular website, probably wouldn't be much of a shill if I didn't point toward their merchandising section. So Gary Con Swag, they have a merchandising section. Obviously, they just came out with these Gary Con 13 enamel pins. You've got the Efreet there. You've got the Fire Elemental mugs. You've got an adventure, the Trouble at Loch Geneva, which is an adventure that was written for Gary Con. That'll be part of the D&D tournament that they run every year at Gary Con. The Auction of Many Things shirt. It's just beautiful. We've got some official Gary Con 12 t-shirts available still. Various shirts, whether the GM shirt or the I don't know, what do you call, button-down shirt, I guess you'd call it. Gary Con hats, good old trucker hats. You've got older Gary Con, the Demogorgon shirt. You've got badges that you can then, or patches that you can put onto hats or put onto various things. There's the angel patch there. There's Luke holding up more apparel. So all of the apparel and adventure modules, and from some times past, some dice, miscellaneous magic items includes the challenge coins. I love this hat with the wizard on it, right? Um, Miniatures, dioramas that you can pick up, prints. So anyway, check out the merchandising section too. Attending, these will take you in links over to Tabletop. It's got hotel information and stuff on here, but obviously that doesn't apply to this year. Sponsors for the convention. Let's give a few minutes to these people because, you know, sponsors for the show, fantastic. In most years, they're going to have a table at the convention. They're going to be able to sell their wares. Virtual conventions, very tough for them to make that money back that they expect to hopefully make as sponsors of a virtual convention. So be sure to check that out. Idle Champions, Steamforged Games, those are sponsors that make GaryCon possible. Check out the platinum sponsors. You've got Hero Forge, Norse Foundry, Fat Dragon Games. Tom Tullis, always a big part of GaryCon every year. Fantasy Grounds, of course, who are also giving people a 3-month subscription just for participating and being an attendee of GaryCon this year. Nord Games, the World of Game Design, the WOGD, Pendelhaven, Fate of the Norns is there. Gold sponsors, you got Cobalt Press, Gooey Cube, Beetle and Grimm, Northwind Adventures, Noble Knight. Silver sponsors include Frog God Games, Flavor Text Adventures, Cave Geek Art, and all of these people, as I say, would have Geeky Endeavors, Failed Squad Games, Inner City Games. All of these people would have booths at GaryCon were it a physical convention this year. And go to this sponsors page and then click through on some of these sponsors and check out some of what they have. Let's help them get to the other side of this pandemic and appreciate the fact that they're helping keep GaryCon alive and keeping GaryCon going as it goes the distance through this pandemic, having to go virtual twice. They may wind up being one of the few conventions that has had to cancel twice due to this. If things hold out and the pandemic is put in the rear view sometime in April, May, June, July, who knows, but hopefully sooner rather than later. Once we get to the other side of this, it's going to be nice that that all these people were helping keep the conventions going, so they didn't have to fold, close the doors, go bankrupt, like so many small businesses have been hurt this year and through 2020. In any event, Virtual Gary Con, Ethereal Gary Con XIII, March 25th to 28th. Make sure you are involved. It would be fantastic if you could be. Hey, listen, we're about done here, so I want to thank everybody who is in the chat today, everybody who's popped in on Twitch. Please do follow the channel if you're here. It'd be very much appreciated. Thanks for chiming in on the. There we go. Thanks for chiming in. Also, thanks for chopping in. If you're catching up with us on YouTube, appreciate that too. Please do subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up on any videos you watch and enjoy. It would be appreciated. Click the little bell after you subscribe so that you can get notifications when we put up a new video, which we do Monday and Thursday. We do a live stream at 10 a.m. and then we follow up by archiving them on YouTube, usually within the hour. And so you can catch it live or you can catch it soon after or watch it over and over and over because you're obsessed. I know I am. I watch them 30 times. No, I don't watch them 30 times. I know what I said when I did it. But point your friends to it. We'd appreciate that. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Thank you very much once again, and bye bye.